Hey, y'all, you're listening to Great Men with Shane Sams, and I'm excited to have a great man on the podcast today. One of my oldest and dearest friends in the entrepreneur world. We've been doing it together here for about a decade, my friend, Tom Sylvester. What's up, Tom?
What's up, man? Yeah, a decade. That's
It's a
crazy.
decade. It was like 2015. Was it 15 when you
Yes,
came to my live event? I think
probably
it
around
was.
then.
16, somewhere in there, man. We've been like trying to figure all this. We've been doing our best for about
Doing
10
our
years. It
best,
feels
man.
like we're doing, that's what everybody's just doing our best in the pursuit of greatness. Everybody
hmm
out there. Give me a couple sentences real quick, man, for everybody listening, and we'll jump into our hanging out a little bit. Just tell everybody who you are, what you do, and then let's talk about being a great man.
Yeah, I've got a wife and two kids, and like you said, just trying to figure things out. Knew I didn't want to work for someone for the next 45 years to retire at 65.
That
So
sounds fun.
set a crazy goal to figure out how to make it by 35. Ended up building a couple businesses. Was able to get financial independence by 32, and then I spent the last couple of years just figuring out how I create the biggest impact.
Yeah, man. Impact's what it's all about. I think like we've been making money now for a while, and I mean, we've figured out how to make a lot of money. I mean, we've kind of
hmm
figured that part out. It's not always easy, but we kind of got that part down. We've solved the income problem, but the influence and impact, man, that's kind of what all you're left with at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and a lot of people too, like it's not to downplay the income problem, like definitely figuring that out is some challenges. But in hindsight, the income problem compared to the influence and impact problem is like so much easier.
So much. You know why? It is so funny. That is something I know on the other side of entrepreneurship. Making money is not the damn problem. That's not the problem. Like once you figure out how you make money, you can figure that part
hmm
out. But like it's like not it is it's true. It's just not it's satisfying. You know what I'm saying? And like then it doesn't really mean anything. And when you get to that point, like I got to a point about I don't know about 3 years ago where I was kind of like, man, I did everything everyone told me to do. Like I went to college, I worked a career, I started businesses, I have a great, beautiful wife, two amazing kids, dogs, a couple cars. I did everything you're paid off my house. Like I did all these things. Like I was well respected in my niche and like what I was doing. And I tell you what it was for me, and I give credit to my wife a little bit for her wisdom here, is I realized that everything I had built up to a certain point was based on someone else's checklist of what a great man is
hmm
supposed to look like. And it made me a good man. It really did. But like those checklists, dude, I started looking at them like the checklist from my church, the checklist from my community, the checklist from my brothers, the checklist from my mom and dad, the checklist from my friends, even the checklist like when you start being an entrepreneur, you read all these stupid books, and they're like, if you just do all these things, you'll have a great company. Good to great. All you got to do is be like this company and do what they do, and this podcaster and do what he does. And it's just somebody else's list, man. That's why
Yeah,
it's not satisfying, dude.
and to that point, I think that's why, like, there's a book I read recently called The Second Mountain. And it basically describes it as the first mountain is all of that stuff you just talked about. And it's what we think we should do. But why that becomes easier is because there is a path. And even if it's not like what we really want, somebody else
Mm.
has told us what to do and we're just figuring it out and following it. But then what that book talks about, and I
It's like a
think you and
treasure
I,
map for it's like a treasure map for,
yeah.
but you
And
didn't want the treasure.
yeah, and then you get to the treasure and you're like, that really wasn't what I
uh,
wanted.
that sucks. What am I doing
But then
here?
what happens is we fall into this like valley of despair, and that's where a lot of us really struggle. And there's not a map out of there. And that is where we
Mm.
get to go inside and really think about, okay, why did I have those beliefs and why is that not satisfying to me? And then what is it I really want and believe? And that's a hard place to be.
Bro, making your own checklist,
Yeah.
that's hard. I remember when I was a football coach, I remember trying to make my own plays. And because we had this playbook, and I was like, yeah, I'd do it this way. And then I train speakers now. It's one of the things I do in part of my business. And like, they come in and they're like, what if I do it this way? But then they realize that that didn't work because the way is kind of, there are definitely like, what do you call it? There are heuristics and there are best practices. I mean, it's hard to get away from those.
Yeah.
But like that question, man, I hate that question. What do you want?
Yeah.
God,
It's
man,
it's tough.
jeez, it is, man.
Well, and this reminds me, like, did you ever take like karate or anything when you were
Oh
younger?
yeah,
Okay.
Freaking yeah, I'm a
So
brown belt in Shaolin Do. What are you talking about right now? I really
well,
am.
and I remember there was this thing with karate. It's called shuhari. And for anyone that's watched like Karate Kid, we all know like wax on, wax off. And
Right.
pretty much what was happening was it was like shoo. It was like just don't ask why you're doing this. Just do it. And then once you get to the point where you've got the movement down, you're following it, then it's like, where we're getting into understanding why we're doing that. And it's like, oh, well, I'm doing that motion to block. And
Hmm.
then we get to which is what we're talking about now, which is now that we understand all of that, we're going to break free from what got us here and figure out what we really want and create our own.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
that's where the challenge really comes in.
Totally. It's kind of like I remember I used to teach kids tackling, and they would, of course, you do like fundamentals and form tackling and all these different things, and then like something would happen that like there's a certain point where the fundamentals break down in real life. Like there's certain
Mhm.
angles where you can't form tackle and like you can't do things, and you're telling the kid like they're like, coach, I couldn't get a good form tackle in, or I couldn't get the angle on him, and I'm like, well, then jump on his back and hang on him. Like what? There's a point where you just got to decide to do something to accomplish something. You know what I'm saying? Like we all
Yep.
know the end game, but just jump on his back. And he's like, oh, coach, I remember one time. Oh, this was the hardest thing to teach a kid. When you teach a defensive back, like they're beat, this is happening, and they're going to score like catch a pass for like 40 yards or score a touchdown. And I'm like, well, just get a pass interference. Like, just grab him and pull him down and get a pass interference. But coach, you told me not to get a pass. Well, no, this is we're making stuff up as we go here on the fly, buddy. We don't want to give up the touchdown, And it's like it's kind of like that with life. It's like you have all these things. Like I know how to do all the things I do in my life, and damn, sometimes they don't work. That's what's hard is when you realize like if I do things a different way, I don't know the outcome, but I know the outcome I'm getting from the tried and true checklist way isn't feeling very good right now, man.
Yeah, well, and you ironically mentioned the book Good to Great, and that's what I find a lot of us fall into. It's like things are good enough, right? We have a good enough job, we have a good enough marriage
Ugh.
until it's not. And what's
Yeah, man.
unfortunate is I think most of us have to get to a point where things aren't good anymore to then make that change.
Yeah.
And what I think's been cool is more and more I've been able to start looking ahead and being like, all right, instead of like waiting until I get to that point, can I start seeing the path I'm going down and start shifting that before everything gets terrible?
Or go off road and say screw the path. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, can you prevent that? It's not even prevent. It's just can I build something that's less unsatisfying? That's actually good sometimes, right? Like one of the things I didn't, I when I was building my business, one of the promises I made to myself, because I was a school teacher and I went into entrepreneurship, and I was like, well, if I'm gonna do all this work and build my own thing, I at least want to control my schedule, and I want to be with my kids as much as possible. That was one of my. I remember distinctly thinking, I'm going to pick my kids up from school every day, and I'm going to take them to school every day, because that never happened for me. My dad worked, and but my dad would always tell me things like, I never missed a ball game. I could always leave school to check you out if you were sick. And I started doing that in that season of my life. And it was good. It was really, really good. I did that for like almost 10 straight years of taking my kids to school, me and Jocelyn and the kids every morning, every afternoon. Right. I wouldn't work in the afternoons for like 7 or 8 years. But even that was kind of like unsatisfying. And it was beautiful and good. And the memories are there forever. But I realized like, but wait a minute, like that was my dad's checklist. Like my dad told me I never missed a ball game. And I used to tell people I never missed a ball game. But then as I started speaking and these companies that we were building were just exploding, and I was going out more, and my kids became teenagers. Like in that season when they were teenagers and up, when middle school and up, they didn't want to be with me. They didn't want me to pick them up. They wanted to go to practice. They wanted to go do something else. They would do these things, and I was like, but I was really wrestling, and I was trying to force them into this box of no, I take you to do. I in the box, but I was like, oh wait a minute, that might have been great for my dad. That might have been his perfect life that he would do that. But for me, I was like, yeah, but I'm making a huge impact. I'm speaking to 10,000 people every Saturday. I'm helping people believe in themselves. I'm seeing thousands of people do the things I'm teaching them and become successful. And like, that's important to me. It really is like that. Not for ego or anything. It's just my God-given gifts are to go out on stage and move people past where they're limited and stuck in. And I had to, man, the guilt. I had guilt for a year, the first year I went out on the road and really started speaking. But I realized the guilt was from my dad's checklist, which was not a bad thing. It was just something that was not me. Like I didn't want to be. I miss ball games, and like I do this thing. We do a lot of mental health stuff, and Tom and I are always talking about frameworks and
Oh
tools and
yeah.
things to help us do different things. And one of the most valuable things I've ever learned was from a mutual friend of ours named Will, and it's called Challenges and Benefits. And then I added this thing onto it that Dan Miller taught me. He wrote the book 48 Days to Work You Love. A great man by every stretch of the
Mhm.
imagination.
Absolutely.
God rest his soul. But in any situation, he asks, "What does this make possible?" And when I did that to my old checklist that someone else had given me, all right, me going on the road and not being at every ball game, not being there every day to pick them up. All right. What's the challenges of that? Okay. Well, I see my kids a little bit less. Okay. That's a challenge. Right. So we got to figure that out. So meaningful experiences entered more into my life. I focused more on the meaningful quality, not quantity. Right. Benefits of them: independence. Dad's not always going to be there. You've got to figure this stuff out. Showing them that it's okay to go out and create resource and serve other people, and the world's not just about them and things like that. And then the possibilities. Hell, I got rich as crap. You know what I'm saying? We got a lot more money. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, you know what I'm saying? There's more money to do other things, which money doesn't bring you happiness, but it's a great tool. So I had to just really, but to get over that guilt, I had to work and work and work through journeys, through frameworks. And I finally, now I'm like, this is amazing. I'm living in my choice by my checklist. They're living in choice with more abundance. And, it just creates a new story. You know what I'm saying? It's
Well,
not a bad story or a good story. It's just a new one.
yeah, and something you mentioned earlier was like seasons. And that was one of the most powerful concepts when somebody introduced that to me because we always hear like, work-life balance or any of that stuff. And the reality is different seasons require a different focus in one area or another, right?
Yes.
And so once I realized that, and I always came back to like, okay, what season am I in? And based on that, how do I get to distribute, my time and my focus and my energy? That helped a lot because, as a business owner, we're always like trying to build the business. But when you have a kid, like things shift. And there's going
Totally.
to be different times where you're going to have to be heavier supporting the kids or heavier supporting the business or heavier, working on your relationship. But when you can think about what season you're in and where that gets to get distributed, I find that that helps a lot.
Yeah. And the checklists suck too because we all make these systems and procedures in our life. And I'm really intentional and systemized and frameworked and whatever. But like life just doesn't care about your systems sometimes. Like I had a checklist, just last week where last week I was on the road speaking. All right. That was the business. All right, check that check box, made some money, talk to people, come home, do all the honeydew list things. All right, did that, did the honeydew list. That weekend, Jocelyn and I had a very intentional, we were going to go do an overnight, very intentional, remember, intentional. And we got this overnight planned. And then I get a call at 2 a.m. because my daughter and her friends went out and were riding a golf cart in sport mode. It was street legal. And, she flipped it and rolled it over her leg and
Of course.
right in the middle of cheerleading season. And, I go get her and she's all road rashed from her hip to her
That
ankle.
wasn't in
And
your plan?
no, that wasn't on the checklist, bro. It's just these illusions of control. And we're looking to control everything. And like surrendering, man, to the flow in the season is like what I'm learning now. I don't really understand it properly because we're not taught that, man. We're taught go to school, get good grades, go to work, do this thing, show up at family Christmas, blah 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 blah. And as I watch, here's what I love about my life right now. I hang out with crazy people, man. I hang out with you, my mastermind. On the weekends, I'm backstage with Tim Tebow and John Maxwell and Willie Robertson and all these crazy people and just doing all these stupid things. And man, the more I hang out with everybody, the more I realize no one's got it figured out, man. And just
Yeah.
the people who surrender to the flow that usually are at least happier and have a little bit more joy.
Absolutely. I've learned the same thing. I mean, I spent years, working with like executives at big companies, and it was funny. I remember like being relatively young, getting into some of these like boardrooms, and I was always so intimidated. And it blew my mind how much nobody knew, how much nobody had
Anything.
it together. And it was
Nobody
just
has it
like,
together.
hey, we're going to figure this out. And what I learned was that the most successful people are the ones that aren't held on to that story or that checklist. They're like, hey, this was the plan. It didn't work. So we get to figure it out.
Yeah.
And there was just something freeing about being okay, not having all the answers, and then charting the best path we can based on what we know and adjusting along the way.
Dude, what about, I have this like very good entrepreneur friend, and I always looked at him like, he's got everything figured out, just a good guy, leaves everything good, and names not to be named. But, and then like, there was this like month where like his daughter got knocked up and like all this other stuff happened. Or I'll hear like these really put together high profile entrepreneurs, and then they'll tell me stories about their kids and they were like drunks and got on cocaine or something nonsensical. And I'm like, you? Like, wait, hold on, you? Or like, or like somebody will say like, you think someone's just crushing it from the outside looking in, and you realize that they had to go borrow $500,000 to make payroll for the year or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, wait, didn't you have a checklist? You had a business plan, and didn't you write a book about this? Like, what are you talking about right now? But I think that like what I love about people like that though is they have figured out this process of becoming great on your own terms. Like the reason they write the book is to consolidate, is they've gotten fed up with the other checklists. The reason that they're out there talking about this stuff and working it out loud is because they've seen that just doing it everybody else's way, it just doesn't work like at all, man.
Yeah. And I mean, like, if we think about even how we met, my wife and I, we were working on our various businesses together. She had left her career, I had left mine, and we're just trying to figure it out. And we're like, there's got to be other couples that are doing this. Right. And then we ended up finding you and Jocelyn. We came
Shane
to
and
your
Jocelyn
event.
look like they know what they're doing.
Hey, our checklist isn't working. Let's go look at their checklist. And then come to find out, parts of your checklist are working, some don't work. And then we get on this beautiful journey of being like, okay, none of us have it figured out. But guess what? As we chart our own course, we get to figure it out together.
Totally, man. Yeah. And we've done a lot of mental health work. We've been to like retreats, we've went down consciousness routes to try to figure out mental health. We've went to some psychedelic retreats and done some therapy there. Like I've done like legal assisted ketamine therapy and other things like that. It's funny how we kind of came to the same conclusion at the same time. We talked about this recently, that like men in this culture are just screwed. I mean, because we are judged by the checklist more than women, I would say. I mean, women are chaotic, more feminine, like their energy is meant to be free and creative, nurturing, more flowy. Men are really the containers for that energy, you know what I'm saying? And it's like I've just noticed, I was like, when I was going through it, a depression a couple years ago, I was like, man, am I the only one going through this? And I started looking around and going, oh, everybody's going through it, because it's just so screwed. Men's the concept of masculinity is just destroyed on every side. Like you got the alpha bro, come to my retreat and be a Navy SEAL guy, which is stupid. And then it's fun for a week, and then you come back with your suit on, and then you realize all your shit's just the same. And then over here you've got, which you and I have been to these kumbaya, touchy feely, embrace your feminine nonsense over here that's just dumb. And it's like, it's just crazy, man. Like there's really like nowhere to go but figuring out yourself with a bunch of other guys that are trying to figure it out themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's really the thing is like, there are so many like healing modalities out there, right? And we've worked through a lot of them. And
a lot of them are good. I don't want to dog
and some of them are
anything.
great. Some of them not as great. Some, come at the right time, and you've got to, be open to it. But I think the biggest thing is us each charting our own path and being able to define our own definition and what feels good to us while getting support and feedback from other people. Totally. And I think especially with men, because, and this is not to like discount or discredit women or their experience, but
no,
in our society, there's certain expectations for what it means to be a man. And a lot of times what ends up happening is that creates us disconnecting. That creates us not feeling. And then if we look at a lot of the challenges we have in relationships, well, it's because that was the checklist or script that we had. We never learn anything different. And then when we get exposed to this whole world, it's like, oh my gosh, what is this? How do I
Yeah,
manage this? Like, I've
totally,
never
man.
experienced this before.
Yeah, and I went through the season of, I kind of bought into it for a while of like, hey, you should be more vulnerable. You should share and process with your wife and like all these things. And I can tell you right now, like that didn't work for me. Maybe that's part of your checklist, but like I just found out she couldn't contain all the things that were going on in my head, and it's not what she needed. Like women need surety, man. They need men who are confident in their path that they chose, and when shit hits the fan, they need to be confident that you're going to figure it out and it's going to be okay. And I was actually talking about this with my mastermind just the other day. I was pulling up this text message. We read this post. We read this post online about like sharing with your spouse and like how that's a horrific idea. Not being vulnerable. I'm emotional. I cry in front of my wife. Like you need your woman to comfort you and nurture you. Like you need to show your emotions, but you don't need to like unpack them with women. That feels wrong to me in my journey right now because they can't contain it. They were meant to contain what men can contain. And one of my mastermind guys, he said, it's okay to show your wife your scars, but don't bleed out in front of them. And I was like, dang, dude. And then this post went on to talk about like men need to be surrounded with other men. Like I can call you anytime if something's going disastrous, the company's shutting down, the dumpster fires floating down the river. Like I can call Tom and be like, I can just let it all out and be like, oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. This is stupid. Like that's me. That's that iron sharpens iron kind of concept.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So does one man need another. But like I think that we went the wrong direction in society about like just pouring everything out all the time to everybody instead of like trusted brothers kind of deal.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the thing. And it's important to keep historical context in mind with this, right? Because there was a period where there was a certain expectation for what it meant to be a man and a woman and what that relationship looked like. And then very often, if something is skewed too far one way, what ends up happening is it skews too far the other way, right? And
It went the
so
other way, and I got hit in
it
the face
definitely
with
went
the
the other
pendulum.
way. And then
Totally.
if you think about like us growing up with it one way and it's skewing the other way, it leaves a lot of men, especially a lot of young men, being like, okay, well, I was raised this way. Now this stuff's going on. It feels too far. It doesn't feel natural. And most men then end up, turning inside and they don't
Mm.
have men around them to be able to actually explore some of this stuff without being judged.
Yeah, and the answer is inside of us. The kingdom of
100%.
heaven is within, baby. That's where it is. And so
Mhm.
it is inside of us, but you need that. You need guys around you that you can process that with. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Coming back to your point, like there was this time where I felt like, my wife, I had to like everything was her. I had to share everything with her. I had to get everything from her.
Been
And my
there.
current level of understanding is, listen, we have a relationship and there's certain things we're going to get and give to each other. But guess what? I have other relationships. And
Totally.
sometimes it's those other relationships. Sometimes it's being surrounded by other men to give me that perspective or get what I need from that. And
Yeah,
so that
man.
was a big shift for me, was realizing I don't need to get everything from my wife. And by the way, she
Totally.
doesn't need to get everything from me either.
No, God, that's unfair for anybody to even have to live up to that freaking standard. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
exactly.
I learned something last night, dude, that blew my mind. One thing that Tom and I talk about a lot for everybody listening is like we really love our wives like
Yeah.
deeply, and we talk about how can we support them, how can we have a better relationship with our wives, like in all things on the table, whatever it can do to try to make our wives and lives better. And one of the things that we've learned a lot of in the circles that we hang out with for mental health and things like that is this concept of rupture and repair. Right, you've
Mhm.
heard this before, right?
Oh yeah.
You and your
Oh yeah.
you and your relationship with your woman, partner, wife, whatever the hell it is. Like you want it to be like, okay, you're going to have conflict. That's the rupture, and then you got to recover and get back on stable ground, and then you have to come together and repair. And I've always heard this taught to me as like, oh, well, that's where you go to therapy and talk about all your problems, or you go to a mental health workshop and you sit down with each other and you really unpack all the fights you had in the last 6 months, and you want to come to a resolution. And that always felt kind of right to me because as a man, I like to confront things head on and fix them. You know what I'm saying?
What?
Well, no, that's what we
We don't,
do.
we don't do that.
No, that's what it is. And like, that's how we are. And like women Do not do that. That is not what most women do, right? And man, I was watching this video last night, and I was like, oh man, I've been doing this wrong. This lady was talking about rupture and repair. I forget her name. She's on Lewis Howes' podcast. I can't remember who it was. And he was talking about rupture and repair and how important that was for relationships. She goes, I was like, yeah, but people get this wrong. Like, you don't have to go back and talk about the fight. You don't have to go figure out why the fight happened. You don't have to do that. She's like, there's always going to be rupture, but repair could be, okay, you have the fight, you have the disagreement, and a couple hours later, you go get her a water and bring it to her before bed. You just repaired. Like, you don't have to dig it back up and do those things and like all that framework, I think, is going to change everything, the way I handle any kind of conflict with Jocelyn going forward. Because like it can be like, you know, for example, I'll tell you a great example. This is like a couple of weeks ago, me and Jocelyn were fighting, and we are just like, we were arguing sort of stupid. I don't remember what it is, guys. You know what I'm talking about.
Usually how it goes.
Just how it goes. And we were in this argument, and she like leaves the room. We're still talking room to room, and I'm just laying there in bed, and she's coming back in, and she's coming back down the hall. She starts talking again. We're talking again, and she walks over and she hands me a needle, and she turns around and she like pulls her pants out or her butt cheek out. She wanted me to give her peptide, her Ozempic or whatever it is. Like, she has to take peptides for her blood sugar, and I just looked up at her and I said, "Are you serious right now?" And she goes, "I can't do it myself. Just give me my shot." But like in this middle of the storm, I'm like alcoholic. We're still talking about the thing, and I'm like, boom. But then the fight actually kind of dissolved after that, because like, you know what? I'm pissed off. There's no resolution to this. I don't even know what we're fighting over. I still love you. Come here. I'll give you your shot. You know what I'm saying? And like, but that's like things like that are like, you learn from other people. And like, you know, how many people are just like taught growing up, like, you fight, you don't talk for a week, you sweep it under the rug, you do whatever it is again, instead of, yeah, like repair might just look like moving on and not figuring it out and not trying to be right and doing all that stuff.
Yeah, and you know, to that point, like what I've experienced, whether it's through therapy or just talking to other people, it's like we all have these tools, and take the tool and try it on, and if it works for you, great.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, for me, one of my best tools I got from therapy was, you know, coming back to that point of always trying to fix a situation. I
Yeah.
didn't even realize that's naturally what I was doing. Like,
Totally.
so,
Yeah.
you know, our therapist was like, "All right, Tom, what I want you to do is anytime you find yourself getting into like fix it mode, pause and breathe, and then I want you to ask the question, what do you need from me right now?
Yeah.
Right? Do you want me to solve the problem? Guess what? Most times that wasn't the case. Sometimes it's
Totally.
like, just shut up and listen. I'm like, all right,
Totally.
I can do that.
A
But I
buddy of
didn't
mine.
realize that for the longest time. And I think most men, we had the best intent,
It's
but
the
we don't
pattern we've
realize.
seen. That's
Yeah,
all it is.
exactly.
Amen. My buddy calls that listen or advice. That's what he does. He doesn't even say, "Do you want me to fix it?" Because he found that was fighting. And him and his wife will get into arguments, and he'll just stop and pause, and you know, bring the initial, you know, torrent of the hot fire hose, and then he'll go, "Listen or advice?" Clarifying question.
Love it.
Listen or advice, and then it's like, and he's like, and to this day, she's never said advice.
Yep.
Oh
Spot
man,
on.
there's the
Spot
women
on,
are.
man.
Yeah. All right. Let me ask you a question here. All right. So like, this is something I do at one of my live events. I'll ask a crowd this. Like, think about like a time from like 0 to 10 years old. Okay. And like, who is like, looking back now, you can see like, who's the first great man you ever admired? Could be anybody too. Like, you know, it could be a fictional character. It could be a person in your life, or whoever. It doesn't matter. Like, think back. Who do you think of?
Yeah, you know, one that stands out to me is my grandfather.
Mm. What were the qualities? Like not like, don't unpack them yet. Like, try to think of like 5 to 10, 1 to 3 word things about him that made him great in those young eyes.
Yeah, you know, father in the family he grew,
Nice.
just presence. He had this chair, and when he was in that chair, he was just there and like telling stories and, you know, recounting.
King of the castle kind of
King
deal.
of the castle, definitely. And then I'd say wisdom, just looking at the life that he had and how
Mm.
much he knew and learned.
Wow. What other words? Just thinking like descriptives, like happy, joyful, patient, whatever. Like any other words that just come to like one word answers.
Loving, stern.
That's interesting juxtaposition right
It's
there.
a great juxtaposition. And when you
Oh,
think
that's
about
interesting.
it, like,
Yeah,
yeah, we'll dive in more, but yeah, I'd say those are the initial ones.
cool. And so a buddy of mine taught me this. He's another speaker. Like, think about this. Like, this is, I think we were talking just a minute ago about how confusing it is to try to figure all this out once you decide, like, I can't live on these checklists anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But it's kind of funny because, like, I would describe you with a lot of those words for real. Like, I would totally just like you're a straight shooter. I can see how you could just stern and straight shoot. Some of the negotiations we talked about business lately. You're like
Oh
you're
yeah.
here in your stern mode, super loving. You know what I'm saying? Especially with Ariana and your kids. And but isn't it crazy that, like, when you were below 10 years old, when you were a kid, you had no definition of greatness, but like you didn't know what a great man was, and like you hadn't had all the programming yet from the world and society, like whatever, but you intuitively recognized like those great qualities, like in your grandfather, right? And you instinctively wanted to move toward that, like, oh, that's a kind of man I want to become. Like you knew greatness when you saw it without any kind of anyone teaching you what it is. And the lesson when I started doing this, this happens every week in some of the places where I teach and stuff. It's like those are the things that are inside of, like, all the answers were already in there. Like for little, you knew what greatness was. You saw that, right? And you could probably think of an opposite example of a man in your life, and we won't go there because whatever.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? But
Mm-hmm.
it's like you knew the opposite when you saw them side by side, but we think we don't have greatness inside us. We think we have to use everybody else's checklists because that comes later. Like when we go to school for 12 years and they tell us, no, you have to do it this way, right?
Exactly. Well,
Isn't that
and that's the
crazy though?
thing.
Like that greatness, you knew it when you saw it,
Yeah.
what you
Well,
wanted to become because you had it in you. It's
exactly.
nuts.
There's two really key points there that I've learned. So one is, whatever you see, you're a mirror, right? So
Mm,
even as you just called that out, oftentimes when we're giving feedback or when we see something, it's really just a reflection of like what we're experiencing, what our lens shows us. So that was
mm,
so powerful for me because when I started then sharing things back and somebody gave me that frame of like, well, Tom, that's a mirror. How is that showing up for you? At first, I was
mm.
like, no, it's not. But then as you start unpacking things, you're like, oh, that was actually there the whole time. But I had
Totally.
all these layers and all these masks come on. And it wasn't until I had the space and had the support to actually unpack it where I'm like, oh, yeah, that was there the whole time. It just got covered under everything else, you know?
Totally. Checklist. The checklists are instructions to build masks. That's what they are.
Mhm.
This is an instruction manual for that, right?
And
There's a
that's
great.
the thing is,
I'm gonna send you a great song after we get off here in a minute that I heard just this week. Somebody sent it to me, and the first line in the song says, "The mirror won't smile first, and the universe is a mirror." So
wow.
like, yeah, I know, right?
I
So
feel like we
like
got to
you,
pause on that one, Shane.
right?
Woo!
It's like the universe is a mirror, and the mirror won't smile first, and it's like, dang, man, like because like that mirror of your grandfather, like you were seeing the things that were inside you that you wanted to come out, right? But like also too, like great men like that are sometimes at a distance. Like our grandfathers are one layer removed, so then we get in our family dynamic and we see more of that, or we see more of an uncle, or we see more whatever, and it kind of makes you, it drifts you away from the one you saw that you really resonated with.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if we think about it, another thing that I really learned was, we think who we are now is who we actually are. And what we don't realize is that those masks and those layers have been put up over time. And so as we start getting into this work and we start peeling those things back, we actually get to who we are without the mask.
Totally.
But we don't realize that we have a mask on for a lot of that. And that's the interesting and I think challenging thing is when we start exploring this, it's like, oh, who I thought I was isn't. And now without that identity, who am I really? And like
Totally.
those are some of the deep questions where it's like, dang, where do I even start?
Yeah, man. I think the pandemic kind of ripped a lot of this masks off figuratively and literally. I don't know if this is true, but like this started for us. This started for me. I'll just stick with me. Jocelyn's having her own journey and whatever. But like this started for me when I actually witnessed after we sold our first company, I saw some of this stirring in her, like this, dang, man, we just sold a business, paid off our house, did all these, and there was this, oh, that wasn't what I thought it would be. And then like I kind of watched her for a little while, and I part of all the masks that were on me at the time, I was kind of getting mad. I'm like, what else do you want? I mean, we're ballers. We're traveling all over the world. We sold a business for a 7-figure sale. Like our kids are healthy. Like he knows all these things, and there was like a 2-year
Mm-hmm.
period that I was like almost focused outward, but I now know that I was seeing in her what was happening in me. She just got
Mm.
there a little bit first. And then in
Which usually
2020,
happens.
which usually the wife, hey, your
Yes.
wife is the canary in the coal mine, guys. That's what's happening right now.
100%.
100%, dude. And then in 2020 was the first time we went to a retreat to kind of confront the demons. You know what I'm saying? And my journey started there, where I was like, and of course there's so much momentum. This doesn't happen like it's not a Damascus Road moment where the light comes down and everything's clear. But like I saw this like, oh crap, like I've built the life that everybody else told me to build. And then I think you and I went to a retreat about a year later
I think so.
together,
Yeah.
something like
Yep.
that. But like when did you start, because you're a successful guy, man. Like I admire you so much and like respect everything you and Ariana have built. And like, but when did you realize that what you were building wasn't exactly the satisfying thing you thought it would be? Did that happen about 2020, 2021, or how long ago was that?
Yeah, it was a little bit before that, and I think it was when Ariana and I both just started working more closely in the business. And what I find happens is that
That's a
coming
trip.
back to that quote before of like, good is the enemy of great. When things are good, we don't notice these things. And it's like
Hmm.
when we start getting into challenging situations, then these things start coming up. And for us, we got to a point one day, I remember we were in our basement, we are trying to do some planning, and we just look at each other and we're like, what is going on? Like we have such a great relationship, and now this like business stuff is causing us to like fight and spill over into our marriage. Like, what's up? And so at that point, we didn't even know what options were available, but we're like, okay, like let's go talk to a therapist. And I remember the first time we went to a therapist, she's asking us some questions, and I start telling this story. And I'm like, listen, we had this stupid squirrel that got in our attic and our roof, and I'm trying to get it out. Ariana's like mad that I'm not getting it out. And I go on for like 15 minutes, and I stop, and the therapist goes, Tom, this isn't about the squirrel, right? And I'm like, what do you mean?
It's
And she
totally
goes,
the squirrel.
she's like,
Logic.
I'm like, it's the squirrel. That's why she's mad at me. And she's
You
like,
were you were this
is
is
it really
you're
though?
literally chasing squirrels. This is the most entrepreneur thing I've ever heard in
It
my
really
life, dude.
is. But I'm like, no, it is the squirrel. That's why she was mad at me. And she goes, well, can we unpack that? And we started diving in. And then that was a point where I was like, oh, there is a lot of this stuff that's kind of been building up, and we had no realization of it. But it was
Hmm.
like that one thing that ultimately set us on this path of starting to take a step back, explore, and understand.
Yeah, you've unwound that too. You guys don't work real closely with a lot of
No,
stuff
that
right
was
now,
that
right?
was actually one of the things that we did. It was funny because after we met
We did
you
the same
guys,
thing, by the way. That's funny.
yeah,
That's a
and I
success
think
leaves
for a
clues
lot
kind
of
of thing.
couples, that's actually the case. So after we met you guys, we started, meeting all these amazing couples, and we would have like dinners together, and we'd talk openly about what was going on. And then one of the coolest things was we did a series on our podcast called Couples and Entrepreneurship. And we actually had you and Jocelyn on. We had all these amazing couples. And we just started talking about how do you make it work? And sometimes couples were working together. Sometimes they had their own business. Sometimes one was doing their own thing and one had a business. And that was when I started to realize that, like, just because we wanted this path didn't mean it was necessarily the right path for
And
us.
that might have been too. You just seeing it, other people from the outside. Oh, they're business partners. But
Yeah.
when you start unpacking it, like it doesn't look like we still work on things. Like,
Oh,
but
yeah.
like I remember this came to a head when our live event company was blowing up back in 22, and we got to the end of 2022. I had had a massive health scare. We were just going too hard. Our team had went up to like 30 people, counting our like 1099 sales team and our full-time W2s. Jocelyn was COO and I was CEO and the front of the face of the company. And like we both realized, like, one, I cast myself in this role of CEO, and because all my friends were like, you got to be a CEO and you read the book and you got to get yourself out of the business and you got to be the guy that runs the show and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I'm not a CEO, bro. That's not my jam, dude. I'm a dancing monkey. Throw me on a stage. That's my job. I talk for a living. That's what I want to do. And like, and Jocelyn, although the skill set was to be CEO for sure, like I had cast her in this role of, we're working together, and I look over at these two people, and she's the COO and he's the CEO, and they're doing all these things, and like we just took on these masks, and then like Jocelyn just finally was like, I'm stepping completely back of the business because this is not the path that I want to be on. And it's so funny, man. When I saw her say that, at first I felt hurt, rejected, went through pity parties, felt unsupported, all this bullshit. But I was doing the same thing to her that the world was doing to me, was
Yeah.
casting her in these roles. It just didn't make sense. And then, like, when she stepped out of it, still a process, still a journey. Now she's got to figure out her thing, or what she wants to do. But she really fell into this more role of like just managing the family and doing things like that. Not like a traditional wife role necessarily, because she doesn't really want that either.
Yep.
I had to hire like 5 people to replace her. That's how talented my damn wife is. And but like it was interesting. It was just an interesting watching her, like, again, a couple years ahead of me, of like canary in the coal mine. Like she was feeling the mask, but she couldn't articulate it because she was in the feminine emotion, right? That's her domain, and I'm in the masculine logic. I'm an emotional guy, but like I've definitely have my, we're gonna figure this shit out. Let's go. And like, and it was funny watching that, of her stepping back and saying, this is not the path. This is someone else's path, but it's not my path, and I don't want to be on this path. And we were able to kind of make some shifts, and it really it made space by removing the business discussions. The only thing Jocelyn does now is she pretty much books my flight and makes sure everybody pays me, right? But like it made space for us to actually do the work on ourselves and our relationship. For anybody listening to this, we are never telling you what to do. We're just telling you what happened in our life. This is a story that we're in, and like some people may work together. Like I think that that I see some people that are like way more like
Oh yeah.
that functional relationship, and that works really well. That's greatness on their terms. Cool. But it's just doing the thing that's right for you in all your relationships, basically.
And that's really the thing, because I think, like, especially as men, we have the best intention in a lot of cases. Like I hear a lot of men. Actually, we were just at a mastermind that we're hosting with a bunch of business owners, and one of the guys was there, and he brought his wife, and he said, my goal was to retire my wife, which is what happened. And then I start talking to the wife because I know exactly how this story's going to go.
Was
And
that
I'm
her
like,
goal?
how are you doing with things? She's like, well, and she had ended up starting investing in real estate. And that was kind of like his way to get her to do something and try to help her find out her thing. But
Help. Let's put
immediately,
air quotes on the help.
help.
Did she ask for help?
Exactly. But so what we started to unpack was, well, like, that's actually not her path, and that's actually not what she wants. So even though you as the husband had the best intention, part of it is like giving her space to figure out what she wants to do. And I
And
find so
patience
many.
to wait for that to happen, because
Oh
you can't
yeah, the
force it.
patience
What
is
about
key.
yourself, dude?
Yep. But the challenge that I find comes up, like, as I dive more into like intimacy between men and women, something that's really fascinating is women will often see something first, but us as men don't see it. And then women go into one of two modes. Mode number one is they try to help us see it, and we often think it's nagging. Or mode number two is that they just stop saying anything and they go silent. And
Mm-hmm.
then we struggle because we're like, what the heck is going on? And then eventually later on, we catch up and then we're
Yes,
like, oh, okay.
I
But,
get it.
it's this interesting dynamic that the more I learn about it, I'm like, I look back on so many times in my life where Ariana saw something first. I didn't see it. I'd get frustrated, or pull away. And then later on, I'm like, oh, yeah, she was right all along.
Totally, man. Like I actually came up with a new framework. I've not put it in the Great Men online community yet, but I think I'm gonna call it time traveling. And like this just happened just the other day, because I love
I was gonna say, tell me
frameworks.
more, man.
Yeah, man. So like I call this time traveling. So but basically the big picture was, we had a plan to go do something, and then Jocelyn had actually started the plan and came up with the idea for the plan, and I was on board with the plan, and it was going to be a really fun plan. But then something happened, and Jocelyn clearly wanted to change her mind and not do the plan. She wanted to do something else instead.
That never happens.
Never.
You're making this
But
up, Shane.
no. But I was in agreement but the reasons for changing the plan made total sense. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, cool. And we had talked about it, like we were texting back and forth and talking about it. And, and there was even like this text message that was like, hey, I think I want to do this other thing and I don't want to do this thing. But I needed to cancel plans with some people that we were going to have these first original plan with. And I thought, cool, go into man mode. And I'm just like, I went and canceled the plans. So the outcome that happened in this moment was 100% the outcome Jocelyn wanted. And it was done quicker than she wanted it done. That's good, right, guys? That's great. And then Jocelyn, I told her what I did. I was like, hey, I fixed that. We're good. And let's move on to the other plan. And she got really upset, like very upset about this. And I was like, what's happening right now? Like, what universe am I in? And she was really upset. And, and I was like doing the exact wrong thing. I was like showing her the texts. You know what I'm saying? Oh, look right here. This is what I assumed this. I thought I was trying to I was trying to justify what I'd done and like, what I do. And like, I'm telling her this and she's getting madder and madder and madder. And I'm like, what's happening right now? And basically, like after a couple hours of talking about this, she was like, you denied me the process of helping make this decision. It feels like you just stepped in, made the call, and like and did it. And I was thinking I was leading from the masculine, but I was trampling from the masculine. You know what I'm saying? Like I knew what the outcome was going to be, so I'm like, me, man. I'm just getting it done, baby. And like, and then like, and this actually happened last night, bro. So like last night, I was like, hey, how about this? This all started about 3:00 today. Let's go back in time at this place, and let's do what should have been done, what could have been done.
Mm-hmm.
And we did it. And I was just like, let's imagine clearly that this did not happen, right? I wasn't necessarily apologetic though, because I don't think I did anything wrong, and we both agreed no one did anything wrong, right? It was just like this happened, and I said, let's go back in time for right here. All right, cool. Let's talk about it. Like, so I send you this message, or I say this to you, you say what back to me, and we gamed it out as if this thing had not happened. And by the end of it, and I shut my mouth, dude. I was listening the whole time. I was like, oh, okay. And I was just going through this thing, and we got to the place where, again, it didn't fix it like necessarily, but I was like, wow, that could have happened. And I think that can happen in the future. And it was really, really healthy to be able to just like kind of walk back through it. Now you need a conscious wife who's willing to do this, guys. I know some people are like, my wife would stab me if I asked her to go back in time. Frameworks, guys, they don't always work. You know what I'm saying? This is like frameworks, not checklists. But it was really interesting, man, to see that process kind of lay out.
Well, and it's interesting too that you say that, because I mean, like, obviously, like you were a football coach. What do we do after games in football? Right? We go back and watch tape.
Baby. Watch the tape.
And we go back and it's like, all right, well, here's what happened. Okay. If we were to play it back again, what would we do differently? And let's take that forward. So like, just as you were saying that, I was like, well, there's so much value in being able to go back and review it in a way without,
but not review it from the checklist of what happened, not the timeline. It's the emotions she was feeling that she didn't get to go through.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting with emotions, at least that I saw when you were doing that, it's reviewing the emotions without having the emotions come through and get in the way, because very often, like,
that's our job, is to not let them get in the way.
One of the best quotes that I've been living by the last couple of years, which helps with this, is whenever something happens, I first say to myself, people are doing the best they can based on what they know.
Totally.
And so when I instantly go into this mode of like judging, I say that, and then I take a step back and I'm like, well, this person had the best intention, right? So what was their intention? And I just get a little bit curious. And I find that like doing the time traveling and bringing that lens, it's like,
that's even logical though, man, because you got to be careful. Like we think that, and I actually said that, and I was like, let's assume that we both had good intentions, and like, but I don't think that happens with women in their current state sometimes. But like, do you know what the problem was? She didn't get to go through the feeling of letting down the people we canceled on. I just skipped that part, so she never got the process. Oh, I've got to let this person down. We're going to change plans on them. We did
Can
that.
I ask
It
you a
was
question on that?
so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that moment, do you think she wanted that or was aware that she
Oh
wanted
no,
that?
she wasn't. No, she did want it, but women are not aware of what they want.
Yeah.
And we got to the place where she was like, I didn't even get to feel bad because I was letting someone down. And I'm like, I'm always trying to protect you from bad feelings. I did, but you
Yeah.
got to process bad feelings is the problem, especially women. You know, well, men do too. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
like that was what it was. Is she didn't get to go through all the range of emotions that women feel in all these things, and then that gets stuck in her. Now it was stuck in her body. Now it was stuck in dissociation. Now it was stuck in her
Yeah,
throat.
man.
And now and then she doesn't even know why she's upset because she didn't have time to sift through all the emotions.
Yeah, dude. And I love the word that you use there, which is process. And
Yeah.
that's been one of the biggest things I've realized. Like you talk about it like being stuck in the body. I remember reading that book, The Body Keeps the Score, and it basically
Yes,
talks
it
about how our
does.
body remembers things.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the years is like we get to process everything, the good
Yeah.
emotions, the bad emotions, whatever they are, we get to process them. And if
Got
we
to feel them.
don't, that's when like things pile up and get stuck and other things happen. So I love the fact that we're bringing this back to that processing piece.
Hey, how like I anytime I got guys I talk to about my wife, like we talk about things that are going on, what's happening, whatever. And like I know you're surrounded by great men too, freaking
Mhm.
Dustin, Jason, those guys.
Oh yeah,
Like how has that made a difference? Like not only in business. I mean, I don't think either one of us would be where we are business wise without the dudes we
absolutely.
hang around all the time. But like like I think some guys are even scared to talk about their marriage, scared to talk about even if you go to church and you're at a small group or something like that, like people keep it close to the vest. But like I got guys in my life that know I'm not afraid to tell anything that's going on, and I know you do too. Like how's like brotherhood helped your growth as a man in the last 4 or 5
Oh
years?
man, it's been I think one of the most important things, because there was a period of time, and I think a lot of us men are like this, where we have surface level conversations with our friends. I mean, even like friends from high school and college. The extent or the depth of our conversation was like, "Hey, how'd the Bills do last week?" Right?
Yeah,
And so, what's been cool is that as we've all been going on our journey, and we started to just go a little bit deeper, and sometimes it might be about like religion or spirituality, sometimes it might be about our marriage, but as we each started opening that up, then it was like, oh, like we get to talk about this and we have
yeah,
somebody to process it through that is on the outside and can just listen and reflect back what they're hearing. So
yeah.
it's been cool because we started those conversations, and now I mean, like, we'll grab a cigar, we'll be out on the back deck for 4 hours, just solving the meaning of life,
Cigars solve a lot of problems, guys. Men, if you're not smoking cigars with other guys, you got problems. That's why your problems are so bad.
Like, cigars, I think one of the best things, at least for me, it forces us to slow down, right?
It
Like we
forces
are
you to
go,
shut your
go,
mouth
go.
too. You know what I'm
That as
saying?
well.
That dude, I realized this. I got into cigars at the pandemic. We're going off on a cigar tangent right here,
Oh
man.
yes.
Like, yeah. So I started just learning the ritual of cigars, like how to
Mhm.
cut them, how to do this, how to do that. I'm not a big smoker. I only do like one a week or something like that.
Yep.
But like when you put men around a campfire and things are starting to open up, everybody wants to dump out everything in their soul because it's like, gosh, these guys are actually, someone's actually listening to me. And like
Yeah.
when you put a Churchill in everybody's hand and you explain the etiquette of it, like, hey guys, it's a faux pas if your cigar goes out, so make sure that you're drawing on it at least once a minute to keep it going. And you explain the ritual. I say something, I stop and I smoke. Someone else picks up, they stop and they smoke. And it's just this beautiful governor of a conversation. And I never knew, like, I was like, man, this feels almost like spiritual or religious
Mhm.
sometimes when I'm smoking cigars with men. And I heard this thing once. I think I've told you this. Like I heard this legend once where it's a Native American creation myth where God was creating everything. It actually parallels the creation story in the Bible. It's insane how similar it is until this one point where God is about to create man, and he says, and he's sad because he's creating a finite being in his image, but he's the infinite. So they'll never be able to truly communicate in this lifetime, right? And right, he almost doesn't create man in this myth. And right when he doesn't, a voice cries out from the wilderness, and it's the tobacco plant, and it says, "I will sacrifice myself so that God and men can talk." And then so when you burn it, it's like your prayers are going up in the smoke. But there is this weird spiritual thing when you put cigars in men's hands around a campfire that just makes I can't explain it unless you've done it, but I'm gonna try and give everybody the opportunity at some point through this.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, let's create that opportunity. But
Totally.
even like if we talk about nicotine, and it's funny. I get so many people that are like, "Oh, cigars are terrible for you." And if you look back, on it, like one, nicotine, there's a lot of benefit and there's a lot of history around that. Like it's
Yeah.
very different, like cigarettes and all the crap in it.
Yeah, the
versus
processed
like pure
manufactured
tobacco and
nonsense.
nicotine. But then the second part, like if we talk about like healing modalities, our breath is so powerful. And that's
Yep.
another thing I find,
Slows
when
the
we're
breathing.
smoking is like slows the breathing.
You don't
You get that
inhale.
little bit of nicotine in there,
Yep.
and it really is just magical.
The body has nicotine receptors in it. Why?
Mhm.
We've evolved or something this way to actually respond to that substance. That's just
Yep.
true. So
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, even, there was a military vet. This guy was a Navy vet, a SWAT team officer. He had all this PTSD, and nothing helped him except cannabis. And so
yeah,
he's telling me this story, and we start going deep into like the cannabinoids and all of this stuff, and you're like,
that's a whole other rabbit hole. Why that's
yeah,
considered
but
bad.
you're like, our body is actually set up to have receptors for
Totally,
these
man.
things, and so it's crazy that like talking about like the checklist and the beliefs, when I came growing up and what I thought about so many things, the more
Totally.
I'm realizing that like so much of that isn't true or isn't accurate.
100%. Yeah, and some of it is. I never like to throw the baby out
Sure.
with the bathwater.
Sure.
But like, do y'all smoke cigars on your masterminds every time you get together?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think we send you a picture every time we
Every
do.
time. I was gonna say I got a lot of pictures of you guys smoking cigars, so I'm assuming that that's happening all the time.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
man. It's funny who you end up with too, like, because like when you look around, the average of the 5 people you hang out with most kind of thing. That's a good heuristic. Like it really is true,
Mhm.
man. And like you got to find people. I can this was something I did early in my entrepreneur journey. Ooh, I want to be in that mastermind. I'll pay my way to be in that mastermind. Ooh, I want to be in that mastermind, right? But then you get in there and you realize like you're just buying into a checklist again. It's like,
Yeah.
and like the organic finding of men and like getting in places where they're not, like I joined a lot of dogmatic masterminds that were as religiously strict as any creed in any denomination of any church. And that was where I never felt at home. You know what I'm saying? Never felt at home until I started deciding what I wanted my life to look like. And then I started looking for groups and places like that and then found those men. All groups can be good. I'm not saying bad about anybody. If it works for you, it works for you. But man, I just don't know how. I say this to my friends all the time. Like, I don't know how people do this without other dudes like around them all the time. Yeah.
Absolutely. And to your point, like what I found is that when I started just trusting my gut and my intuition, like what I find now is like I'll meet someone, I'm like, yeah, I don't know what it looks like, but we're gonna do some good stuff together.
Totally right.
And
Exactly, man.
what's funny, like I find that I just align with people. And so it's like most people think that I'm Christian and I'm not. Most of
Mhm.
my friends and most of, the great men that I'm surrounded by are Christian.
Totally.
But it's cool because we come together around like common values and common level
Yeah.
of respect.
And
And with
newsflash,
that,
every Christian you know is a different Christian.
100%.
You
And
know what
that's
I'm
what's been
saying?
cool is like being able to like explore and understand, not with the intent of like changing minds, but just understanding, hey,
Get them
why
out of
do
the
you,
box.
yeah, like why
Yeah,
do you believe that? Let me understand your thought process and your life experience. Let me share mine and let's see, what we can do from here.
totally, bro. Yeah, man. What do you think? What do you think? Like we've talked a little bit about this, but like, what do you think are the biggest lies men are being told right now? Like I'm just looking around sometimes, like this Charlie Kirk crap and like all the left and right and like I just can't even look at social media anymore without
Yeah.
thinking both sides are just propaganda, lying. It's hard to believe freaking anything, man. You just got to turn it off. But like,
Yeah.
what do you think? Like, what do you think of the lies that me and you have been told in the last 10 years as entrepreneurs that we thought were how things worked, and
Oh
like
my gosh.
the truth that the truth that you've kind of looked at and starting to bend on.
Yeah, there's so many, and I'll probably get off on a tangent that you could bring me back.
I'm
But
pretty sure this whole podcast has been a tangent.
it's true.
I had a checklist, but I'm not following it anymore. It's just,
There
I don't
we
know why I even
go.
made one. We've been talking about that the whole time.
Very, very meta, Shane. That's great. So you and I both, love Stoicism, and we, learn a lot from the Stoics.
Marcus is right behind me, baby, at
There
all
we go,
times.
baby.
If you're watching this on YouTube,
I've got my Marcus right here.
let's go, baby.
So Ryan Holiday, who's written a lot about Stoicism, what's interesting was before that he wrote a book called "Trust Me, I'm Lying."
I've read that book. That's a
Yeah,
great
so I
book,
read this
dude.
early in the days, and for anyone that hasn't read it,
Oh, it's so
the subtitle is like the story of a media manipulator or something like
totally.
that. And
Yeah.
so after I read that book, basically what I learned was that everything is a manipulation and a bias. And so what he
Mhm.
would do is like he would try to create like controversy where there wasn't any. And so he would end up doing things that would create controversy to make people react and then show up and be mad. And
Yeah.
so after that, I started having this like lens on anything social media or anything news to be like, okay, what's the bias or the angle here? Let me understand all perspectives. But I think the biggest thing at the end of the day is labels and division.
Mhm.
Because when we label somebody, we take this complex, amazing being that's a human and we put them in a box. And by
Totally.
putting them in a box, we say they are this, they aren't that. And then that starts to create division. So to me, one of the biggest lies I think we've all been told is that we're all separate and different, where
Yeah.
really at the end of the day, like we're all humans, we all want the same thing. And it's the in-person connection and love that really trumps everything else.
Yeah, man. And like you have to vote some certain way, or you have to believe these things, or you have to do that. And Josh, one thing that's evolved in our relationship, like Josh and I've even like, what does it mean to be a great mom or a great dad? Like, why are we putting these labels on of okay, these are the 5 things that make you a great mom. You know what I'm saying? Like these, or what, like for example, one of the things that we did a few years ago, Jocelyn was working in the business. She was doing this thing, and when she was leaving the business, we had hired, I call them my home team. Like, I got a home manager. She comes to my house every day. She works here from like 9 to 3, and she manages like housekeepers and lawnmower mans and grocery shops, and she does all these things. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And when Jocelyn was going like out of that, she had this like, I don't know if it was a guilt or something, because we kept the home manager. And I was like, because then all of a sudden she was trying to put herself back in a label of, well, I guess if I'm not the COO, then I am the housewife. And I was like, well, that's just, why are you just taking one mask off and putting another mask on?
Yep.
You know, maybe this gives you the space to morph into something that doesn't even exist, right? You know, like she does a lot of stuff with the kids when I'm on the road speaking. She pursues her own entrepreneurial interests. You know what I'm saying? And our home manager is amazing. Like, she has an amazing job. It's actually crazy what her job actually is, because she gets paid really, really well to basically hang out with us all day. It's like these masks. The same thing with men. Like, you know, like I think I went through seasons of lies like, well, if you're not the ever-present dad who knows how to has the wisdom conversation with your kid every single night, then you're not a good dad. Right? There's an amazing organization out there that works for a lot of people. Again, I'm never going to yuck anybody's yum here, people, but like, it's called Front Row Dads. And it's like guys that are just anchored in their identity as a father, right? That's great if that's like what works for you. You know what I'm saying? But like the way they presented fatherhood, when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, that's not exactly how I want to be. You know what I'm saying? But we just want those labels, man. Maybe that's the lie, is you have to pick a label.
And that's what I think it is. And I'll come back to, when we both left our jobs and we're trying to figure out like, okay, what do we do now? We're like young 30s, we don't have to work. Like, what does this mean?
Stupid. Bad idea, by the way, if you're in your 30s listening to this ever. Yeah.
It 100% was. But so what was interesting was, we started our podcast, we wrote our book called Lifestyle Builders, and we ended up being like, how do we really describe this to people? And the subtext was your life, your business, your way.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the most powerful things, because it's like everyone is going to try to put a box or a label on you or tell you you can or can't do that. And I think the most important thing is like, we don't need labels. right? Like just disband that.
Yeah,
And then it's crazy what can come up when you don't put yourself in that box or when you don't put other people in that box.
totally, man. And like I think this is something we've had some Jocelyn's had these conversations. Like I think that everything's so big that people use boxes to make themselves understand things. Like I mean,
100%.
take any religious
Sure.
denomination. You've got your creed. You've got these things. If you follow these things, you're on the team. And then it's like, yeah, that's a way to understand something too big for you. But like, or like, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a dad and I'm a good husband. Okay, that's fine. But like, these components, when you put them all together, sometimes they don't add up to exactly what everybody else is doing. Like, I know my life right now is basically, you remember when you'd have Legos when you were a kid, and like you'd
I
get
still
this.
have Legos.
I do too.
Lots of
And
Legos.
you get the set, and then you would build the spaceship, and it would look exactly like the picture on the box. Now I don't know about you, but once I did that, I had a giant box of Legos that I would just throw the thing in and smash it and mix them all up. So then I would build things. I was much more interested in building things with a combination of all the different parts, and you'd have the walls would be all different colors and like all of these different things. And it's kind of like that's what this is. It's like people want to build the Lego set and then glue it together and don't let it break. But that's the labels. That's like it's supposed to look that way, but it could look different, and it's doesn't have to look real different. You could build a similar spaceship, but put a cannon where there was a rocket or something. I don't know, but like you can build things. I really prefer life like that, but there's so much unknown there that makes you uncomfortable sometimes because you can't define who you are, and everyone tells us our whole life you're supposed to be able to elevator pitch, you need to be able to define who you are before we get to the top floor, and that just causes so much anxiety for me. I don't know if it does for everybody else. Some people may like that structure, but like
Yeah.
I find that but the problem is when when Tom comes to look at my crazy spaceship of multicolors and says that's not supposed to look that way.
Mhm.
This is what it's supposed to look like. You've done that wrong. And
Yeah.
really, Tom inside is thinking, "Oh, I wish I could build another spaceship, but I'm just gonna. But I don't have the courage to do it." So, and the Tom, I'm not just use you as an example, but like you know what I'm saying? Like it's this desire to build the box, or just the desire to adopt a box and then put that box on everyone else. Because if enough people are in the box with me, then I picked the right box.
Yeah. And have you ever seen that video? There's like talking about a box. There's a box on the table and there's a guy on each side. And there's a guy in the middle and he goes, guy on the right, what color is your box? And he's like, it's blue. The guy on the other side is like, what color is your box? He's like, no, it's red. And they're arguing back and forth. And then the guy rotates them around and realizes that they were both seeing the right color, right? But they could
Uh
only see their color. So the guy that
yeah,
saw blue, he's like, it's 100% blue
yeah,
until they rotated shoes and he realized the other guy's box was red.
yeah.
And so that was just such a good lesson for me.
Humans love certainty, and even when they're not certain, they will declare they are.
100%. And that's where something that really helped me was I was living in my head for a long time. Computer science major, mathematical, everything's an equation, everything has to balance out. And it wasn't until I started doing some of this work that I realized that, like, oh, we don't have to always live in our head. We can live in our heart, in our body, in our intuition. And it's
100%.
okay that everything doesn't completely make sense to me yet.
Yeah.
And so over time, like I do love frameworks and stuff to help me understand, but I've gotten a lot more. You used the word earlier, surrender. I've
Yeah.
gotten a lot more comfortable with surrender and being and just trusting that things will work out the way they need to and things will make sense to me as I process through it.
I developed this new framework recently too. I call it timelining. I'm just doing this stuff all the time because my brain, I'm ADHD and like I gotta have something.
100%.
So what I do is I draw a line and I cut it into three segments, right? And so it kind of is a straight line at first. And like you know how you'll get in like I like for example, like my daughter flips this golf cart, her knee's swelling up. Jocelyn's got a broke shoulder right now. She's probably gonna have to have surgery. And now I'm pissed off because I'm like, they're both gonna have to have surgery at the same freaking time. What am I gonna do here? And like, so I was really ruminating Tuesday night, I think, on what was gonna happen to Anna Joe. I've got knee injuries. I was a football coach. I'm convinced what's gonna happen. I'm like, she's tore her MCL, maybe an ACL. I've seen this before. This is gonna happen. And my brain was just spiraling, dude. I had so much anxiety and stress and my travel schedule and what was gonna happen and all this. So what I did was I was talking to a friend and we were kind of just like, she was kind of contemplating this with me to kind of calm me down. I needed one of our journey friends outside of the bubble that could read my label outside the pill bottle a little bit. And we were talking about it, and I just had this idea, and I drew a straight line. I cut into thirds, and I put the past, the golf cart flipped. I can't control that. That's completely gone. And then the present, road rash, dealing with the aftermath, trying to get her to a point where we can get her to the doctor and figure this out, right? Like that's what I'm doing right now. And then I wrote this thing on the line, just a straight timeline, like in Loki or whatever. And I wrote, Anna's gonna have to have surgery. And then what I did was I was like, okay, that could happen. That seems the most likely course to me. So that's what I drew on the straight line. But then I drew like other lines branching off into the future. And I started just looking at other things, and I was like, okay, well, maybe she's not got a broken ligament, no surgery, just therapy. Maybe it's just torn and it'll heal back on its own. Maybe it'll do these things. I started looking at all these other blurry futures that could happen. And as I started writing all of these out, like I realized like, oh, I don't really know what's going to happen. And I was like, and I had to surrender right there to the unknown, right? And if you apply that back toward yourself, without those dogmas, you lose that surety and you become more uncertain. But we're like so focused on the dogma that's the only way. That's why it's stressful, because without that, you don't know. But if you surrender to all these other possibilities, all of a sudden the anxiety can drop. It didn't go away. But dudes suck at surrendering.
100%. And
uniquely in humanity, you dudes suck at this.
Very much so. And I love what you shared there, because the way that I frame it, or the way that like I understand it, is like something happens, right? The golf cart flips. That is objectively true.
And it's over. And you can't change it.
But what we immediately do is we tell ourselves a story about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that story is, we think it's true from our perspective, and we think it's objectively true, but it may not necessarily be. So if we can start looking at like, is that absolutely 100% true, or could there be another truth or another story? Totally. And I find that helps us to start going from this automatic story that we tell ourselves to other potential stories. Totally. And we just start exploring that a little bit.
Did you read The Courage to be Disliked? Did you ever read it?
Oh, yeah, dude. I listened to it. And by the way, phenomenal.
Bro, if you've not read The Courage to be Disliked,
yes,
it will change everything in your life, period, bar none, immediately. Like,
absolutely.
It's the best book I've read in the last 10 years. Completely changed how I view trauma, history, the past. And the thing that really, I learned something at the same time as I was researching that book and the concepts in it, that our memory sucks, guys. Like this, whatever you think is true, like, listen to me, it's not. Because like the stats are, I was talking to ChatGPT while I was reading that book about this. If you go back like 1 month to something that happened, okay, and you were there for it and you saw it and it happened, you can recollect about 90% of what happened, but you still can't perfectly remember anything even a month ago. So that extra 10%, your brain is a story engine and it fills in the gaps. So you think you remember everything perfectly, but you don't. Okay. You go back 1 year and we're already down to like 60 to 80% accurate, but you think you remember it 100% because your brain fills in the story of what happened. You go back 10 years and it's down to like less than 50%. You go back 20 years to our childhood traumas that we all think we know, we unpack in therapy and all this bullshit. You do that, like, proven. Go look it up. Don't take my word for it. Trust but verify. Go ask ChatGPT. Go study this. Your memories from that 0 to 10 are more feelings than anything else. And the facts of those things are like 20% accurate. When you talk to anybody else that was there, any records, watch a video. Like, you'll go watch a video and you'll be like, oh, I thought I had a blue shirt on. It's red. But like, so these stories in the past, like if you trust them unequivocally, like this is what's guiding you and you're never growing and looking for new information and new truth, like, dude, you're screwed, because like you're living in a made up freaking fairy tale. And like, I hate people that get this resentment toward their moms, their dads, their family. I get that some people are really abused and there are horrific things that happen in our past that are, we know something horrific happened, but I'm just saying, like, submitting to that's the total true narrative of your life is so toxic, But dude, that's all therapy taught me for the first 2 years was let's go to your childhood traumas. Let's unpack them. Oh, you remember that one time that a teacher spanked you and this was terrible. And oh, well, that's clearly your core trauma and this is what defines your life. I'm like, I don't even remember her face. What are you talking about right now? You know what I'm saying? But like,
Hmm.
dude, that book and like the story of the past, man, like, okay, that's what I think happened is what you
Yeah.
should say. And that's the only thing I can do to move forward. The present today, I know that my daughter's bleeding on my couch and I'm wrapping gauze around her. That's pretty true in this
Yeah.
moment. In the
What?
future, you have no idea what's actually going to happen in the future. You can predict it a little bit, but you're screwed if you just bank on your one idea of what's going on.
Oh, 100%. And even before I read that book, which by the way, everyone should listen to it
Totally.
because
Oh, it's
the
great.
the
Listen,
audiobook is phenomenal.
the characters all have their own voices and like
Yeah,
there's a
like it's
narrator
so
and it's
good.
it's so good.
But the first time I got exposed to this before you and I chatted on it was I was watching this documentary about the mind, and this woman was talking about her recollection of 9/11. And she's explaining the story. She was at school and she remembers looking out the window and seeing like the buildings burning. And then she came back and talked to her mom, and her mom's like, "No, you weren't at school that day. You were somewhere else." And she had this memory that she was so sure was true, and she actually was completely somewhere else, somewhere different. So that
Wow.
memory was just fabricated in her mind. And
Unbelievable.
when I heard that, I was like, okay, nine
How many of
eleven,
those are
such a
in me?
defining event for us. How many of those things are coming up that we don't even realize?
Totally,
And that
man.
was like one of those like,
Yeah, man.
moments.
Yeah, man. I do not trust the past
Yeah.
anymore. I do not trust it. I'm informed by it. I'm influenced by it. And on an emotional level, I know it makes me feel things. I know my nervous system dysregulation and patterns come from there for sure. But I have really, after reading that book, I made a practice. That's really why I got so into these frameworks and things like that. A lot of these are just a lot of the stuff that I teach and do, and the stuff I'm putting in the Great Men Project, and like we talk about even today, is to disrupt the pattern
Yeah.
of something I don't know why the pattern's happening. I can't trust exactly my past that I know that I've figured out why, and like I need to disrupt the pattern and build a new pattern and heal the old thing. There's definitely healing that can happen from your past. You need to think about it
Yeah.
and you need to understand it and take the best story you can. And so I'm not saying disregard it, but like a lot of these things are, man, I just need, it's like my son, the best framework I've ever learned in my life is called 5 4 3 2 1. Best thing I've ever done. It may not work for you, but like my son had a really bad experience at a daycare center. It's part of my story. If you guys listen and you know anything about my background, like he was basically being like really violently mistreated at a daycare, and these people were locking him. This is the story we think we know from the investigations. Again, I don't know the whole truth of it, but I do know, I think that he was being locked in a bathroom in the dark for a long time. Don't know how long, don't know how often, but I do know that there was trauma after it. You know what I'm saying? Like there were physical ramifications for as evidence of this. Like he was scared of bathrooms, so he would hold it when he had to go. So like we had to like go to bowel treatments, and his colon got expanded, and all these different things we had to do. And then we had to take him to therapy because he was scared to go in a bathroom. He just would not go in a bathroom to use the bathroom. So, but this lady, the first session, she was this beautiful, sweet Christian lady, just had a heart for the people and like loved kids. And like first time we were getting in there, Isaac was antsy, and she goes, "Hey, you want to play a game?" And Isaac was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay." She goes, "Tell me 5 things you see in this room right now that you were not looking at before." So Isaac goes around and looks at those 5 things, and I'm kind of doing this at the same time, like, "Oh, I didn't see that sprinkler a minute ago." And then she goes, "Now tell me 4 things you physically can feel on your body." So it was like his shirt, the chair, the wheat, and then it was 3 things you can hear, 2 things you've tasted today, 1 thing you can smell right now. And I did that with them, and I was in that room. I mean, I do this, dude, every transition through. I do this 10 times a day now to transition from like one call to another or one gym to the house or whatever. And like, it was just so interesting to see how getting him present got him out of that past story. And then she could unpack the past story for real. And
Yeah.
like that's why I like these tools, man. Find the tools that get you out of the stories and get you in real life for just a minute and then you can figure out the future. Then you can deal with and heal the past. But dude, guys can't. We're always in the future, or we're always stuck in the past. And it's so sad when I see this, and I know it's happening to men. You can't tell them because they just got to do the work to figure it out from themselves sometimes.
Yeah, well, and coming back to your question and point earlier, that's why it's really important to have other men around you that
Totally.
one, model this and are going through our own work, but
Yeah.
then like showing that like not only is
Smack
it
you every
like
once in a while.
possible, but like it's actually like good. It's okay.
Yeah. I think that's a lie that men are told too. Is I find that most men not working on growth are most of the guys I've met in my experience are really, really in the future a lot about what can go wrong. And they're always worried and anxious about future. And we should. We are designed to provide and protect our families now and in the future, you know?
Yeah.
But the world tells us, hey, you should be investing. Hey, you should be putting money in your 401k. Hey, you should be buying real estate. Hey, you should be doing that. Oh, it's good you have a business now, but forget about that. Are you prepared if the recession happens or if something goes wrong or whatever, Ryan Holiday was using in his marketing. And like, you know what I'm saying? But like that's a lie that it's constant, man. Like we used to know what was happening in our village, and now I know that Charlie Kirk got shot in Utah. I mean, what the hell? Like, how's that productive? Now I'm worried if there's going to be a civil war. Now I'm seeing a UFO get shot with a Hellcat missile in a congressional hearing. When are the aliens coming? Oh, AI. This is cool. I can write an email fast. No, it's going to take over someday. Terminator. Dun 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 dun. Like that's a lie, man. Like that the future actually it's coming. I mean, it's prepare a little bit. I give 20% of my time and money to the future, and I'm keeping the other 80% for me. Like that's
There
kind
you
of my
go, man.
my deal with myself. That's what I make.
And what's interesting too, like, and we could go on a whole tangent with like AI and everything else, but when we talk earlier about truth, part of the thing now is like, is that true? Is that real or is that AI? And here's the thing, even if something isn't real, like let's say that you heard news that somebody died,
Mm,
whether or not that's true or not, you're going to have a reaction and you're going to feel
totally.
that.
Totally.
Right. And so part of what's happening now is we let so much stuff in that then forces us to feel a certain way. Where
Yeah.
one of the best things I tell people is I'm like, create your environment for success.
Oh,
And
hey,
that's your
this
physical.
is the good segue, my friend. You're reading my mind. My next
Beautiful.
question, but this is
Very in
my next
tune.
question, was like, let's talk rhythm because I'm way
Yeah,
more concerned.
man.
I'm more concerned like with rhythm in my life that I choose than I am the checklist anymore. I think getting into your own rhythm is that. So like, what is your like? Let's just do daily. Like, let's keep it real simple. Not because we're telling you guys to wake up and ice bath and all that bullshit that all the wake up warrior people are saying or whatever. I don't know. But like, what's your rhythm like on a daily basis? Like, what are some habits that do ground you? Like when life gets loud, man, when you look at Twitter all night and you're freaking out because your wife's in an emotional spiral you don't understand and your kids flipped a golf cart and they're underneath it. How do you find, how do you get in your rhythm?
Yeah. Well, I'll preface it before I share. Everyone's big on like morning routines and they're looking at other people's checklists. Your rhythm should support you and make like things better. And if they
Yeah.
don't, let them go. Like it
Yeah.
shouldn't
Don't
have to
don't
be
do it
this
just
like
because somebody else
strict
does it.
checklist or I can do all 27 things or it's not going to work. So, for me, and this changes, right? It changes in different seasons and whatnot. But here's what I
Yeah.
do. I wake up naturally. I haven't had an alarm clock in years. And I set an intention when I go to bed of like when I'm going to wake up. I already know kind of like what the next day is going to look like.
Yeah.
So I get up, I don't check my phone. I go and I drink a glass of salt water. I hydrate myself. And then I come up to my office, and my office has been structured to support me. So I literally come over here and I've got this wall that says create your future. And it's
Hmm.
got my memento mori calendar of how many weeks I have until I'm going to die if I'm 80. I've got men that inspire me. I've got my identity.
Who are the men? Who's on your board?
All right, we've got my Spanish teacher from high school. Got Jocko
Nice.
Willink. We talked earlier about Dan Miller. Dan Miller's
Oh
on
yeah.
my board. I've got Tupac Shakur, one of my favorite like inspirations when I was a kid. I've got Buddha on here. I've got Marcus Aurelius. I've got Naval Ravikant. I've got a couple other people.
Nice.
But so
Nice.
basically, I do this thing and I take myself to the future and I remind myself of what I'm creating and why I'm here and who I get to be.
Good
And
vision.
then I do this rest of this tour around. And on the other side of my room, I've got this big banner that says love your life. And I've got pictures of the people and the key moments. And you and I've talked about this before. Most people only revisit all of these things like when they die, like the life
Totally.
flashes before your eyes. I'm revisiting this life in gratitude every single morning.
That's brilliant.
So I walk
I love it.
around there and then I get into my meditation space. I start every day with writing down 10 things I'm grateful for. And let me
Mm,
tell you, this changed my life.
yeah, man.
So then from there, I'm doing some reading, I'm
Anxiety
doing some
cannot exist in the
meditation.
face of gratitude. It can't.
No,
It's
you
very
can't.
hard for it
So
to
I'm doing
exist.
some reading, I'm doing some gratitude, some meditation, and then my kids usually wake up. I spend the morning with them, and then I get into it.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the core. And even if I'm not home, I'm still doing a light version. I'm doing hydration, I'm doing gratitude, and I'm doing just some meditation and something to get my mind going.
That's good, dude. Yeah. And mine looks a little different.
How
I'm
dare
a
you,
natural. I
Shane? It's
know,
got to
right?
be exactly this.
No, that we're creating a framework. No, I'm just kidding. Like, yeah, I've played around with all the things. Like,
Same.
Hal's Miracle Morning, and all that nonsense. It works for some people, but like, I've tried all the things, just trying things out. But like, I know, like, I've been unhealthy and I've been on the verge of death in the hospital. That's happened to me, and it
Yeah.
happened because my body was unhealthy. And so I read this Egyptian proverb. I got this great book. It's called The Oldest Book in the World. It's literally the oldest single thing that we know has been written down until we find something else by Graham Hancock. And like, and there's this proverb in it that says the body must be strong for the soul to rise. And I was like, oh, because everybody's trying to get spiritual enlightenment and all this, whatever. And I was like, that's that, which is fine if that's where you're doing it. But like, I was like, okay. And I knew coming out of the hospital and I almost died that like I have to have a strong body. That's what I have to do. And so the main thing that I do is I wake up naturally too. That's good for me. I just like to get up a little, and my son can drive now, so I don't have to get up for school anymore. So he takes his sister. They have an alarm clock, but I get up and like the first thing I do is walk straight to the door and walk outside. I like to be outside, and then most days I'm like going straight to the gym. I have to, even if I just walk in, sit in the sauna, and walk out, because I like to check the body box. That's my first box before I get to other things. But man, it's like look how similar our rhythm of our life is with family and work and this other stuff. But like look how different our morning routine is. And it so works for both of us. But
Absolutely.
but the rhythm is I'm doing something in the morning. I got to push the first domino.
Yeah.
That might be the commonality in all morning routines I see is you're doing something, you
Yeah,
know.
you're doing something. And I think the most important thing is like the feedback, right? Like if something like whether it's your diet or your workout or whatever, we can argue all day about is it this or that? Listen to your body. And it's like if this supports you and helps you feel good, do more of it. If it
Totally.
doesn't, do less of it, you
Totally.
know?
I
Because
love
like
hey, if you people love ice baths, that's amazing that works for you. I like warm fuzzy slippers. I like nice things, and I like hot showers. I tried, and like I feel good after it, and I'm like I just don't want to do that. So, but you know what? If it works for you, do it. You got to
yeah,
do
and
it
you
for
know,
you.
to that point, like there was a time where I was doing like ice baths every day. And
Yeah.
now what I do is it's a lot more intuition. So like, I mean, I lift several times a week. I've gotten into like rucking recently, which is like just walking around with heavy weight, you
Yeah, I love
know.
watching your Instagram when you just are like walking around carrying a like log on you or a backpack full of crap.
But it's like, you know, I lean into like what's going to support me that day. And you know, I
Mm,
used to be like I got to work out every morning first thing. And now I found there's some days where I get up and like I'm actually better to get into like work mode and get something done and I work out later. There's other
totally.
days where I'm like, man, I got to lift or I got to do something to get the body going. And
Yeah, don't
so I've
resist that stuff either, man. Like I take naps. Jocelyn
oh
hates
dude,
naps.
naps. Let's talk about naps for a
I'm a
second.
multiphasic
How
sleeper,
did we
bro.
ever lose naps? Like we should
This
have
is
kept that
crazy.
going all the way
It's
through.
we should kindergarten on. I don't know why they
That's
took
what I'm
that from us.
saying,
Yeah,
man.
and like some people don't like naps because of whatever, but like I sleep like 4 or 5 hours at night, and then I take like an hour, hour and a half nap in the day. I mean, I just
Dude.
do,
And for
and
me,
I
it's like a
feel
30
better,
minute nap.
dude.
Like,
8 hours of
but it
sleep makes
works,
me
you
feel like
know?
trash, bro. So like, why do I listen to these freaking expert sleep guys? Oh, everyone
Yeah,
needs eight
man.
hours. No, I feel totally like trash if I
Yeah.
sleep more than 5 or 6 hours, maybe six at the most. And then about 3 o'clock, I'm like, yeah, I ain't doing nothing else. I'm taking a nap after we get off this call here in a minute, bro. I'm going crashing. for like 2 hours, dude. But I
Yep.
feel so good at night, and then whatever, man. It's just like whatever works. But man, rhythm. That's something Journey taught me too. Is like everyone's got a rhythm. There's a rhythm to things,
Yeah.
and the nature is rhythm, and everything has different rhythm, man.
And that's the biggest thing. Like of all the things I've always come back to, I'm like, what is that natural cycle? What's that
For me,
natural rhythm? Right?
yep,
Because the further we get away from that, the more I find things, fall apart. And you
yeah.
can take that to like our financial system, you can take that to anything. The further we get away from a natural rhythm, the more challenging things are going to be. And
Have you
part
ever
of
been
like,
told this? Have you
what
ever
was
been
that?
told in the business world? Have you ever been told this? You should wake up every day and look at your money. You ever heard an entrepreneur say that
Oh
before? Like
yeah.
I got a buddy that tells me that all the time. You should wake up. He's an accountant too, and he's like, you should look look at your money. So I'm like, yeah, I should totally do that. I tried it on. It stressed me the hell out, even when the money was going up, because I was like,
Mhm.
oh, because then I'm thinking about all these different scenarios and things
Oh
and
yeah.
whatever. And I'm about a once a month guy. You know what I'm saying? If there's, I got fraud alerts on. If something happens, it's gonna ping me. But like for me, yeah, I call it money day. I have money. It's like my Scrooge McDuck money bin day.
You dive in.
I dive in, start swimming around, count a few things, and then get out. But like that just works for me, man. It's just like this works for me, and like I get it. That guy,
Yeah.
whatever you're doing is working. But like but you do have to go out. This is what this conversation is so valuable for anybody listening to this is go try all these things on for sure.
Yes.
I'm not telling you not to do anything.
100%.
My goal with the Great Men Project is I want to collect these things into a library and go try them on. Like these are
And
just things that I learned from my friend Tom or Grant or Brian or Joe or whoever else. And like I'm learning all these things. I'm like in a department store trying everything on to see what I like that looks good. And then like we gather all these things together, and then we have a place where we can go like, well, something's not working. I'm out of rhythm.
yeah.
Maybe it's my mindset, maybe it's my emotions, maybe it's my body, maybe it's my soul, my purpose in life. But the doing of the things and the trying them on and finding different things, your Legos that build your castle, that's the goal for all great men, man. That's how you get to live like a great life, like on your terms, man. Hey, listen, we're gonna wrap that right there because we're gonna go forever. We've been talking for a long time, but Tom will be back for sure because we're gonna have lots of conversations like this with lots of great men. Tom, let's finish up with just this for this time. Like, if you could hand any man listening, any good man that wants to become great on his terms, like a compass or like what direction would you point them in? Not like a landmark, not like a thing. Like it's just like go in a direction, do some certain things. Like just off the top of your head, like what would you say?
Yeah, I'd say, and tell me if this is what you're looking for. I'd say
I ain't looking for nothing. I'm looking for answers myself.
beautiful. So I'd say, do what you're called to,
Mm,
but like you just said, try it on
yeah.
and be okay with taking it off if it no longer is serving you.
Nice, man. It's beautiful, dude. All right, Tom, we're going to have a lot of great conversations in the future right here on Great Men with Shane Sams. But, if anybody wants to get a hold of you or just learn a little bit more about what you do, where can they go online to find you, man?
Yeah, so I'm at the Tom Sylvester everywhere online. So do a quick search, you'll find me.
Nice. All right, that wraps up my conversation with Tom Sylvester, one of my great friends in life, a guy I admire, look up to, great man. And, I hope you can see that we're just dudes trying to figure it out. And we're trying to create a place where other dudes can figure it out. And if you want to go to the next level in your life, maybe your life is good, but it's kind of good enough. And you want to redefine greatness in your life. You want to get around other men who are moving toward greatness that they have defined on their terms. We would love to have you over at greatmen.org. That's the home of the Great Men Project, where you're going to find all the tools, frameworks, different things resources that we talk about right here on the podcast. You can get into the Great Men Library and go through those. We also have the Great Men Brotherhood. That is our online community of men who are trying to reset their mindset, trying to get that emotional intelligence, trying to go out and get their bodies where they need to be so the soul can rise, trying to find that purpose, meaning, mission, and vision in life. You can check all that out over at greatmen.org. The community is always free to join. Inside the community, you're also going to find full episodes of the Great Men podcast. You're going to find the Great Men Project, where you can get all the tools and frameworks and resources from the people that I interview and that I've created myself, access to the online community, and you will be first in line for our Great Men gatherings. These are great opportunities to come and be in person, in the flesh, with other good men who are trying to become great, and great men that we all admire. So you can learn all about those over at greatmen.org. That's all the time we have for this episode of Great Men with Shane Sams. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something along the way. I hope you have a great week. Make sure you tune back in next week when we have another episode. And whatever you're going through in life, whether it's good, bad, challenges, benefits, or everything in between, face it head on. Step into the fire.